Patty Gibbons. I'm the president of the Greater Harmony Hills Neighborhood Association. We're over here by, our association is over by the, let's see, Blanco Road down to West Rhapsody over to San Pedro, kind of little, about 2,000 homes over there. Michael Berlanga is going to be our presentator tonight, and he'll talk to us about how to challenge those property tax appraisals that we all got in the mail. Welcome, Cassell. And I'll just keep admitting people as they come in. So I'm not going to take up too much time here. I'm happy to have presented this today. It is a
Cassell.
It's been helping us to really get out there and meet a lot of people. Zoom has. It has allowed GHHNA to continue our meetings this year. We have them every month now, usually the fourth Thursday of the month, and we'll be happy if you want to leave an email. Happy to send you a invite of when the next meeting is. We do meet in person now up at the Voight Auction House, which is super fun to meet there and very relaxing. So we really enjoy a good time. I have some really phenomenal speakers so far this year. Okay. And Michael, you are one of them, one of our superheroes. So I'm going to hand it over to Michael Berlanga for him to introduce himself and go ahead with his presentation this evening.
Thanks, Patty. Again, it's a privilege to always get in front of a HOA, that I'm very fond of. I'm your neighbor to the south. I manage the building in Castle Hills, just 2 blocks south of Loop 410.
We have a meeting at 6 tomorrow.
And so I'm just glad that we could get together. How are we doing, Patty? Can y'all hear me?
Yes, there we go. I'm sorry. We got you.
That's all right. So again, my name is Michael Berlanga, and I am going to give you probably a 25, hopefully no more than 35-minute quick overview of where we're at, where you're going, and where we're going to get on this opportunity to relieve you of some of your property tax burden that you're going to get bills for in the fall. So without any further ado, I'm going to get into the presentation. And if you'll allow me to go to that, let's see. Can everybody see that? You're welcome to give me a show of hands. That's great. So that's my phone number. That's my email address, and we'll be sure and make that available to you as we proceed through to the conclusion. But my motivation for doing this has been found in. Oops, not technically what I'm trying to do. Hang on, bear with me. So by way of introduction, I'm a CPA and a licensed real estate broker. I'm San Antonio born, raised, and educated. CPA may stand for Certified Public Accountant. When it comes to taxes, I like to say it stands for cow parking attendant, because I have a ranch, and if I have enough cattle on my ranch, I don't pay the kind of taxes that I pay when I talk about my home in the city. As a licensed real estate broker, I also like to take that cow that we call our home and help you take it to market, or primarily in commercial real estate. But I'm always talking value as a broker, and this is where the opportunity to kind of bridge the gap between telling the world how valuable your home is when it's gone to market, versus the opportunity to talk about all the honeydews and all the things that need to be considered when you're talking to the government about how to lower your value and relieve yourself of the burden that they're suggesting you should be stepping up to. I do this on behalf of the True Tax Center, which is a nonprofit that I founded with the help of several passionate people for this subject matter, that we can give these seminars and continue to improve on the information that's the latest and greatest for free. And for a fee under resolutions now, sometimes I take on clients that are justifiably in need of support that is mutually beneficial. But as president of the Christian Chamber of San Antonio, I like to start off with the scripture that says, then give to Caesar what is Caesar's and God what is God's. And I can tell you that no version of the Bible that I've read substitutes the Bexar County or any appraisal district for Caesar. So I believe we have scriptural authority from the Word of God to protest. But I also know, and many of us don't know this without being a tax geek, that the Texas Taxpayer Bill of Rights, our legislature has has this Bill of Rights, and the sixth right is to contest a decision. So a decision's been made to put a value on your home, and we have the right to contest it. So I've got scriptural authority, I've got legislative authority, and for that reason, my conclusion is that tax avoidance is not tax evasion. We're not going to talk about anything that's immoral or fraudulent, and hopefully that will give you more confidence that you're doing what is within your authority and your capacity to do, and we're here to empower you and inspire you to do that. So let's talk about the schedule. And this is really important. Many of you are going to hopefully find that this is the distinction between talking to your real estate friends and professionals who are saying, wow, it's a hot market. If you want to come to market, we can get you more money than ever before. Of course, we got to find you a place to live if we do that. So that may be what tempers your decision to go to market. But no matter your decision to go to market, you owned your home January 1st. And as of January 1st, you might have had work that still needed to be done. I like to liken it to your car. If your car, though it may be clean and may be running, isn't ready to be traded in, then your house is no different. It's not make ready. You still have work to do. If you were to retain a broker to market your property, they would probably tell you you need to go ahead and make these repairs, or take care of those honeydews, or call the insurance company on perhaps damage that has been covered, but you haven't attended to that claim yet. So January 1st is the effective date. So we're looking back and we're looking forward from that date for perhaps work that we've taken on or work that we've estimated. I was talking to a doctor last night, and he was saying, well, I do a really good job of keeping track of all my repairs on my rental properties for last year. I've got all the deductions. And I said, we're not talking about what you spent last year. We're talking about what needs to be spent or has been spent since the first, because that's how we can make an adjustment for what the government doesn't know. The government has not been in your home, and only you with the proper presentation can maximize the possibility of lowering the value for tax purposes. So January 1st is our date, and May 15th is the date that we have to file our protest. That's simply getting in line, and I'm going to go through that form. Most of you got it in the mail last week, and we're going to be very specific so that you can at least get off the seminar if all you want to do is just how do I get my protest file. But we're also going to talk about, once you get the evidence back from the government, how to get prepared for the hearings and what options you have once you go through those hearings if you still aren't satisfied. But this is the general calendar that takes us through the year. Once we have established a value that we're in agreement with, then you're going to get your bills in the fall, and next year the process will start again. So they sent the notice of value. Most of you should have found it, like you said, at the very end of March or early April. And I like to say that the notice of protest is on the back of the not a bill notice. And as a consequence, I like to emphasize by showing you your notice. It looks something like this. And if you can see at the top, I love that upper right left-hand corner. It says, this is not a bill. And then it says, this is not a bill. It says, do not pay from this notice. This is not a bill. And if you have any neighbors or friends or family that you want to share what you learned tonight, it starts with this. Yes, they've told you that your value went up, perhaps by 10%, even though perhaps it isn't justified. But there's also this culture that when you get something that says it's not a bill, well, what do you do with it? You put it aside. It's not a priority. But if you were to flip that form over, then you would realize you have an opportunity to protest this value, this increase. In this example, it went from 180 to 198. And they even increased the land from 32,000 to 44,000 when they can't even justify how they came up with that allocation to land. But we'll talk about that later. Right now, I want to emphasize this was in your mail, and if it isn't, we need to go looking for it, or we need to call the county and say, send me my notice. Because on the back of that notice, I've blown up the form. It's one page, and I'm going to cover this one page in 3 slides. You have the opportunity to fill this out, and most of it's already been pre-printed on section 1. That where my name is and my contact information is where your name would already be pre-printed, but you're going to have to also offer them your email address. if you want to perhaps get some of this information by email, and they won't have that yet. This will be the first time they're asking for email addresses. You don't have to volunteer that if you don't want them to have it, but if you're going to be communicating by email, that would be helpful to them. But in section 3, I put red stars to really help you focus in on the 2 blocks that you absolutely positively want to check. Don't leave one off in favor of the other. If you think your house is appraised incorrectly, then check the first one. But also check the second one, because you don't know yet how your neighbors are being taxed. And it's possible that you're being taxed higher than your neighbors, or it's possible that your neighbors who have not been protesting in the past have allowed the government to create a momentum that suggests that their values are causing your value to go up as well. And we'll talk more about that. But in the section 4, there's a question, and it says provide facts that may help resolve this protest. And I ask you to fill in that blank that not at this time. You have no obligation to start presenting your evidence or making an argument or even suggesting a value as they ask you, although it clearly says optional. So don't start by negotiating against yourself. What you want to do is you want to decide, how do you want to present your case? Now, in the past, before COVID, I would have said, let's go in person, because most people that go in person, they create a certain atmosphere that, you're here to talk openly and honestly about what you think is different. But remotely by Zoom, at the very least, will get you that face-to-face presentation and assure you that you can see what it is that they're looking at that you've provided. If you're not a Zoom-friendly person, which I respect that, then I would suggest you at least do it by telephone conference if you want the efficiency of not commuting, but at the same time, at least you can still interact. I'm not a fan. This is my personal bias. I'm not a fan of e-protests. I think it makes it easier for the government to not make it personal, to respect that you've gone to the effort, you've gathered some data, and you've gathered some pictures, and you want to look them in the eye. They've accused you of suggesting your property went up in value, and you're suggesting it hasn't gone up that. I want them to look you in the eye and make their case. And to do that, you want to check that last box on the right where it says evidence requested. Even this friendly county, and I know Mike Amasquita personally, rather professionally, that he is different from many counties that do not necessarily make it obvious that the law demands that if we request the evidence that the government has to offer, that they're to provide it to us. So we want to get that evidence. So what does this form allow us to do? As the property owner in this example, I've signed it, I've filled it out, I've checked the blocks in section 3, I've checked my blocks in section 4, I've asked for the evidence, and I've signed it, and I mailed it by May 17th. That's the filing deadline for this year. And if you get that in, they're going to send you your evidence and send you a date for an informal hearing. And so that's the first step, if you chose to go to an informal hearing. So hopefully, if you have to run off, at the very least, you know now what to do with that form that you received, and you know how basically to get your reservation. It's like getting a reservation at a restaurant and asking them to give you the menu before you've even sat down at the table. So what are you going to get in that evidence package? You're going to get probably a 25-page report, but it really boils down to 3 pieces of information that are critical. And the first one is a description of your property. Now, I ask that you look at it because occasionally the measurements are not correct. Not commonly, but enough times that it's worth checking just to make sure that if you had a shed that maybe you don't have anymore, that they're not taxing you on that. If you have a roof line that covers maybe an open porch, but not a climate controlled space, they may have accidentally, because they haven't been to your home, taken the roof line and suggested that all that area that the roof covers is climate controlled space. That is not going to be accurate. And you may want to start off by recognizing that you have a correction to make that could be substantial, even if it's just a couple of 100 square feet of not climate controlled space. The next two aspects of the evidence package is that they're going to also give you what they refer to as equity values based on comparable tax values. And if you notice, I put a question mark, because what they mean by equity is that they are going to show you neighboring properties of similar size and dimension, and ask that you consider that this is what your neighbors are being taxed at. Now, the fallacy in that logic, in my opinion, is that the Bexar County Appraisal District admitted that 80% of the taxpayers, property owners, do not protest their value. So if 80% of your neighbors don't protest, then I really don't think that it's meaningful to question what our value is based on what our neighbors did or did not do in protesting. You know, their homes may be upgraded, their homes may have gone to market, but it was based on not comparing homes that we're not familiar with our home. Now, the third set of data that they're going to give you is our comparable market sales. And that is really where the rubber meets the road, because they're going to suggest that properties of similar size in the similar location have sold, and you should be held to that standard. And to that I say, let's show them why we're not held to that standard. Let's give them our evidence. Now, before I talk about that, about what we're going to give them, I want to tell you the logic behind why we're going to tell you to give it to them in this way. Psychologists have said that the English-speaking population is broken up between feelers and thinkers. And we have high feelers and low feelers. We have high thinkers and low thinkers. I would suggest by occupation, I think of the reds as being salespeople. I think of the yellows as being receptionists. These are people who come to you first with enough charisma or emotion that they immediately will meet you at where you're at, maybe aggressively to reach a conclusion, or maybe just to hold you in a state of waiting for perhaps a doctor or somebody else, an attorney that you're waiting to meet. But on the bottom, the thinkers, the greens are surgeons. These are the people that, you know, they just want the facts, and they're just going to do what they're trained to do, and it may be saving your life. Whereas the blues, I like to think of as accountants, and I'm a CPA. So you can see I'm having to flex to bring out my emotions in making a presentation of facts, but I'm studied to be an analytical, not necessarily to the point of life and death, although some people think maybe taxes are a life and death discussion. But if you understand this model, you'll recognize what we're going to say in creating an evidence package is that we don't know whether we're talking to a thinker or a feeler. We don't know if they just want to see facts without pictures, or do they want to look at pictures because they're more sympathetic to images that make an impression on them rather than running through a quick mathematical calculation in their brain. So keeping that in mind, I like to tell people you need to inform your message. With your message, you want to inform the listener, whether it be the appraiser or whether it be the panel at the formal hearing. You want to inform them with facts. You want to entertain them with images, and you then want to inspire them to be empathetic by flexing your style. So if you're somebody who likes to describe facts, certainly stay with your comfort zone, get all the facts you can, but supplement it with images, supplement it with pictures. If you're somebody who likes to tell a story about the hailstorm that contributed to some additional damage inside, and although the roof was fixed, you haven't had a chance to repair all the sheetrock, and as a result, you got the itch to remodel your kitchen, but you started the project, but you didn't finish it. Tell the story, show the pictures, and then let's support it with the facts of what it's going to cost that you haven't spent the money on. So I'm going to go through this package. Someone sitting in the same type of seminar only a year ago, only last August, that I might add, I'm 61, and I like to say I'm non-digital. But this gentleman at similar age, he was able to take his camera and he's able to do some assembly of information. And this is what his package looked like. And he gave us permission to share it. So I want to thank Mr. Cifuentes for being a good neighbor. So he puts together this summary. And the first thing you might note is there's question marks for the green belt and the shaped lot and the steep driveway. And you might say, well, wait a minute, how does that help when you're trying to make an argument about value? Well, it suggests that there's some numbers we don't know what the impact is. We just think that they need to be considered in discounting the value of his home when compared to other homes. And you'll see this as we go through it. So we're inviting the appraiser, or we're inviting the panel to maybe go and give us more of an adjustment than simply what it's going to take to paint and fix windows and correct flooring issues. So, but then what he does is he gets right into it. Following that list of items, he says, here's a picture of my outdoor painting that needs to be finished. And he immediately follows that image with some facts. He gets an estimate. The next thing he does, he goes to the next item and he shows. Can you hear me? Patty? Patty, can you hear me?
Yes, you're fine now. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So the windows that he shows are stained, and he makes reference to the date. But the next thing he does is he shows again, here's the facts. This is what it would cost for me to replace them. And he goes on to do the same thing with the floor. So literally we're going from ceiling to floor, all in the interior, all where the government has not had a chance to visit your home, nor do they have the manpower, nor do they have the motivation, nor do they have the policy to visit you. They don't do that. And you can make your case, and make a very strong case, by taking pictures and getting estimates of the work that needs to be done in your home. He goes on. Now this is where now we're outside the home. So we've made our case for what's inside, but many times the government doesn't look at where's your home located in your neighborhood. Are those differing from the comparable homes that they're saying justify the value they put on it? In this case, I asked Mr. Cifuentes to show me what was behind his house. And he happens to be on a cul-de-sac, which is a very desirable feature as I market real estate, a quiet cul-de-sac where nobody's driving, past his house. And we don't have that noise pollution. But in this case, he backs up to a green belt that's not in the neighborhood. And to further emphasize that not only is it a concern because there's brush and rodents, but there's also its location. So I helped him by asking him, take a picture of where your property is in relationship to the green belt, and note that the green belt in that third image from the top allows for access by that red line all the way to Highway 281. Now, you can't think of a better way if you were a criminal to break into a home than to come in through a fence that needs to be repaired, across a green belt that hasn't been maintained and is not being watched over, and to get out to 281 and get on your way. So I suggest that it suggests that this property is at risk. So we pointed that out. We then went to the property itself through a survey and said, Mr. Cifuentes, why does the house have this odd shaped lot that most of it isn't really being put to use? And so we'll suggest that the land is actually excessive, but the fact that the house is forward set, it's brought towards the front, obviously resulted in this case, because of the topography, of having steep steps without a rail. And certainly during the freeze, I would say his approach to his home was not as desirable as his neighbors. So he emphasizes that with these pictures. These are pictures of the homes in his neighborhood that they were comparing him to. And he said, look, they don't have the problems I've got. They can come in and out, and they can stay at level ground without having to invite visitors to scale steps that otherwise would be a hindrance for some. So then he returns to the outside and he points out that there's still some work to be done in the concrete steps and the fencing that's breaking down. So all that said, you're making your case, you're showing your images, you're showing your facts, and I always say, keep your peace. Breathe, smile, listen. Don't impeach the appraiser. Don't make it personal. In fact, for those of you that are golfers, the best advice that we give the professional golfers is the best advice I give the taxpayer. Don't become attached to the outcome before the rulings. Take every step like one shot at a time to scoring your best round. Commit to the process of presenting and then appealing. And in that manner, you're more likely to understand why I'm going to make these next recommendations. And that is, be polite, be pleasant, but don't go first. When you get into the formal hearing, which is where you're now are saying to the appraiser, I've had a chance to try and make a deal with you. I didn't think that you had all the information, but you don't attack the appraiser, but you also don't go first and put out your facts. There's always something to be said for being the last one to make your case. So let the appraiser go first, then you present your evidence, then the appraiser may make an adjustment in an offer. And in Mr. Cifuentes' case, they went from 320 to 300, and they asked him, the panel asked him if he was found that acceptable, and I had to be telling him, no. I shook my head. I was behind the camera, and I was making gestures. And so he said, no, I'll let the panel rule. And the panel ruled and gave him an extra $10,000 of value. So he essentially called their bluff. And the panel was more sympathetic to his presentation than the appraiser had been. Now, that's one outcome. Now, clearly the outcome could have been that they would have agreed with the appraiser. But in my experience, I have not seen the panel tell the appraiser that he's wrong and that he's being too lenient. So to me, it's either the same number or it's better, because they feel like the appraiser perhaps just didn't get it right and they're sympathetic. And so to repeat these reminders, be polite, be pleasant, don't go first, don't attack the appraiser, but don't accept his offer even in that moment of truth. This is like, let's make a deal, except there isn't a donkey behind door number 3. I mean, this is an opportunity to have a ruling which will then be sent to you by certified mail, which will now give you the right, if you so choose, for 60 days to file for arbitration. Now, you don't have to, but it's cheaper than litigation, and it gives you the opportunity for 60 days to catch your breath, rethink what happened. Maybe you were having a bad presentation day. Maybe you feel like that panel was biased for some reason, and you just feel like a jury of your peers from Bexar County didn't give you the same opportunity that an independent arbitrator, whether it be from Bexar County or whether it be from another county, and you get to actually make that call, but you have another chance. So the question is, well, what's the cost? But before I get to that, let's revisit where we're at. We're going to file our protest by May 15th. We're going to attend an informal hearing. That's where we just go back and forth without being on record with the appraiser. We're going to follow up to that informal. You may be able to connect with that appraiser, and you may want to stop the process at that point. But if not, you're going to re-prepare. I tend to ask the appraiser, what do you think I need to bring to help make, help you understand where I'm coming from? And quite often they're going to help you prepare, help for the formal hearing by just giving you some more advice. But at that point, we have the opportunity to then decide whether we're going to arbitrate or litigate. And I like to show this picture because the gentleman on the far left is our chief appraiser. He's been the appraiser for the county appraisal district for approximately 19, I think maybe 20 years. He could retire. He's already even picked his successor. I had the privilege of interviewing him in front of the Christian Chamber audience and another political audience. And I love what he said both times. He says, I tell my staff to treat anybody that comes in like they were my mother. So I have had a great deal of experience watching and observing the staff give the best service. Occasionally they don't. Now the gentleman on the right, he didn't quite get the number he wanted. And this was a picture of us all taken coming right out of the formal hearing. But, we got the ruling and we went forward to protest. And that said, he was able to succeed in lowering his property not only from 3.6 to 3.3 million, and that was a physical plant for which his business is run, but because we went forward, we actually saved over another $1 million of value because we made an argument that they were just comparing us to not properties of like use. But I wanted to emphasize Mike's smile, not because he loves abusing taxpayers, but because it's not personal. He's just doing his job, and he's 72 hours away from being fired, as he tells people. We don't get to elect him, but we elect the people who elect him. So we've gotten through our formal hearing, and now we have options. We don't have to litigate, as in the case of before that I just described. We can file for a request for binding arbitration as long as we do it within 60 days of the ruling. We sign the request. We include a cashier's check to the comptroller. We indicate a value that we think we were trying to achieve. And I always say, keep certified mail as proof that you sent it so you meet that schedule. Now the question is how much, and I think that most of the people listening today probably have homes with values of less than 500,000. So the fee is $450. And that is a deposit that is placed with the comptroller. But what you need to note is the arbitrator's fee, that portion of that deposit is $400, and that's the fee that is at risk to whoever loses the arbitration. So by way of example, going back to Mr. Cifuentes, he lowered the value from 320 to 300 before he asked the panel to rule. The panel ruled at 290. Now let's just say that he was trying to get to 250. So he's got a $40,000 differential from 290 to 250. If he can get below 270 by $1, then technically speaking, he won the arbitration. And that means the county has to pay that fee. If the county has to pay a fee, they may settle before they ever let this case be assigned to an arbitrator. Think of it as coming to an agreement with the prosecutor outside the courtroom. Think of it as a plea bargain. But it's an opportunity sometimes where we put up the deposit, but the check never gets cashed because we come to an agreement within the 45 days that's allowed by the state, according to law, for us to negotiate that settlement. And you can see the deposit gets higher as we go to higher valued properties. So at this point, I'd be glad to take any questions and answers. If you want to open it up, Patty, to the audience, hopefully we can all learn from each other, just interacting with the most informal of ways.
I think so. I'm going to go ahead and unmute. I think this is how I do it. If you go ahead and unmute yourself and ask Michael your questions, we'll open it up.
Michael,
Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead.
Michael, my name is Raymond Garza, and my home is a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, nestled amongst 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom homes, and that's why. And when we're going up to almost $160,000, and I looked online for homes in this area, and they're down to in the 140s, but I don't know where those values came from. So being that it's a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, how would I come at it saying, hey, if they send me a package that's saying they're comparing me to 3-bedroom, 2-bath homes or 4-bedroom, 2-bath homes, that's where they're getting their value. How do I approach that?
Well, first of all, thanks for attending. And secondly, thanks for protesting. As I said, 20% of us in Bexar County protested last year, and that was a record high. I think only by more of us doing this can we actually put pressure on the legislature to get rid of this chaotic system, which begs an answer to your question. I would say when we get that evidence package, when you get it, certainly give me a call. But we're gonna want to look at where did they get the 2-bedroom, 2-bath? Are the 3-bedroom, 2-baths lower per square foot? You know, it's a function of the comps as to which way we're going to pivot our argument when comparing to properties that aren't of like square footage. The data that's going to be given to you, whether it's for homes that are appraised and the equity values I described earlier, or market values, they're going to be organized by size. So if you have a 2,000 square foot 2-bedroom, 2-bath, the next one could be a 2,000 square foot 3-bedroom, 2-bath. But we want to find those comps that are most like our property, and don't forget, most like our location. I know in Harmony Hills, we've got some people who back up to Blanco, and some people back up to, you have to help me, is it West Avenue, or maybe even 281? You know, we want to make the argument, whatever the argument is, that maybe we're on one of the cut-through streets and we endure more traffic and noise pollution. So not only do you want to argue if they have a lack of evidence of 2-bedroom, 2 baths, the burden of proof, according to the law, is on the county. And you at least need to say that to cause perhaps the panel to be more sympathetic to giving you the benefit of the evidence you present that isn't just about size, but it's also about property condition and location. But
Yep.
if you get that evidence package, just don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call me, and at no cost. I mean, I just want to give you some talking points. I want you to feel that you can not only look at their evidence, but you can go to the BayCAD website and you can put in your property ID number and you can locate your property, and then you can locate other properties and how they're valuing properties that you think are of similar size and location.
I got you. And I'm in the mortgage business. I work for Randolph Brooks, so I know realtors. I have a personal friend that I've known for 20 years, and I can have her maybe run some comps as well.
Yes, Raymond, and thanks, and bless you for being in the mortgage business. Without the MO, we don't get the RE. So you do more to move the process along. And I will tell you, the San Antonio Board of Realtors, like every other real estate board in the state, currently has no continuing education course that discusses how to protest property values. So I am a friend to your real estate friends, and you and I, and they could get together and do what Patty did, and that was take the initiative of sharing the wealth of information because they learned. Patty, I think we had 2 or 3 realtors in the audience, and they came up afterwards at the one that you had last week or a couple of weeks ago, and so we helped the realtors. As I said before, they're selling steak. You and I are trying to get them to think about the hamburger. So
Gotcha.
they're comparing. They're used to telling you how much they can get for your home, but I promise you this: if they asked you to come sell your home, the best professionals in real estate are going to walk in your home and they're going to tell you, but you need to fix this and this and this, or this hasn't been upgraded, so we may not be able to get as much as the next one. Does that help?
Yeah.
Yes, it does, sir. And I will reach out to you when I do get the package, because I do have more questions, but I also don't want to extend the meeting, and I don't want to take up the time from anybody else's questions. So thank you very much, and God bless. I'm a fellow Christian, so God bless you, sir.
Thank you, Raymond.
Okay, we have a question from S. Huber, and that she put in the chat box. She says, my home is not a homestead property, not eligible. Is it likely using these techniques I will be able to reduce my tax assessment, or is this primarily effective for first properties?
This is universal to your homesteads, to your raw land, to your rental properties, to your business properties. This is not even limited to Bexar County. A financial planner did it for a Creekside Fellowship in New Braunfels, and he likes to brag to all his fellow financial professionals. He says, everyone that attended the seminar saves something. And so I'm not going to pat myself on the back. I'm just privileged to learn with everybody and share in a format. But I would strongly encourage you to get the evidence, and then look at their argument, and then look at what we've made the point today, and that is they don't know what you still need to do to make your home marketable.
And Michael, what was that? What was the website to look up comps?
Well, the Bexar County Appraisal District website.
Just go to the BCAD.
Go to the homepage, and at least you can go to you can see the data that tells you how your house is described. You can click on a tab that'll show you the 5 years of property value history, how your property's gone up in value for 5 years. And it doesn't matter that you haven't protested in the past. I mean, that just says you didn't exercise your right. It doesn't mean that you can't correct an error that goes back. You can't go back 2 or 3 years like you can with your IRS tax returns, where you can find an error and the statute of limitations allows you to go back 3 years and correct and amend a return. We don't have that right. What we do have the right, though, is to point out that you didn't protest, and the number's out of control for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But also what's valuable in that Bexar County Appraisal District website is you can click on map, and then you can scan over if you want to see what your neighbor or a similar property that you say, that house is more like mine, not the ones, and then see what the government's saying the value is on that.
Okay. Alejandra Aguilar has a question. Are you unmuted, Alejandro? You can ask that question.
Yes, thanks. And I think it kind of goes to what someone else is asking. Anyway, thank you again for hosting. Thank you for the great information. I took a lot of screenshots. Um, I did the first protest last year. There was some success. I was wondering if I blinked first because there was a little bit of improvement. I did submit photos. One thing I was unsuccessful was the land value part. I did try to present the idea that the smaller lot was appraised at $4.19 per square foot, but a much larger lot, only 600 feet away, was appraised at about $2.49 per square foot in the same neighborhood. Did I blink first, or is that something that residents cannot be successful with?
Each argument about land is unique. And this is where there's a fallacy in this allocation of land versus structure, as I find it in commercial settings, residential settings. And that is that, how do you separate the cake from the icing? And the government somehow has thought that they can just make the argument that land's going up everywhere. But there isn't a vacant lot, and Patty, or you can correct me if I'm wrong. Last time I checked, nobody's house burned down. Nobody's house was wiped out by a tornado. That Harmony Hills had a lot for sale that reestablished what comparable lots should be sold at. From which, given that there would already be a foundation, we'd even be arguing, are we talking raw land, or are we talking land with a foundation and we scraped it and we built on top of that existing foundation? But I've said this, and I'm not trying to libel or slander the district, but I think it's a technique by which you feel like you're shut down. You feel like, okay, well, I guess that's a good argument, and I don't want to say any more. But I've gone to arbitration and found that somebody a little more educated is like, yeah, that is a poor argument. How is the land suddenly worth 35% of my overall value when a home builder that builds neighborhoods like my brother with Texas Homes, he will buy a large tract of land. He will put in all the utilities and all the ingress and egress of roads, and even maybe a common HOA facility like you have. And then his goal is to get his land value as a percentage of the end product, somewhere in that 20, at most 25% range. What I mean by that, by example, if his lots cost him $100,000 and he's building homes for profit, the end product shouldn't be worth less than $500,000 if he's doing his job and he's competing with the market. So if the developers are assuming that land should justify a structure that's 4 times the value of the land, how is it that the county can come along and say that your house that's worth, let's just say, $250,000, that the lot should be worth 75? And I'm seeing this. I see it in the older section of Castle Hills, where they'll increase the lot by 68%, but they'll increase the structure only by 15%, hoping that all these arguments you made about the house cause you to then agree and let the land slide. I think it's an abuse, frankly, abuse of logic, and it's an abuse of the overall value.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Alejandro. And Clinton Graham kind of has the same thought that he heard secondhand, that increases of the land values cannot be contested. Is that accurately, especially if the entire neighborhood is being equally reassessed? So I think you can contest the land.
I think it's about the way you frame the argument in front of the panel. It's like saying, yes, I to the jury, yes, I changed lanes, but it wasn't because I was under the influence of alcohol. Or I changed lanes and you pulled me over because I didn't put on the turn signal. Or I started to change lanes, but then I got back in my lane, but that wasn't reckless driving. So it's about appealing to the panel that this logic is flawed and it's not supported with evidence. That's the key words. Where's the evidence that the land went up in value? The response classically is, well, land's going up everywhere. Well, that's not evidence. That's an opinion that is not based in any any evidence that's provided in the package. And the best we can do is make that statement. And if enough of us make it, I promise you, we'll be the benefactors of those panels continuing to hear this and hopefully being sympathetic, because they're taxpayers also. And if not, and if the margin of opportunity to save money is justifiable, we can visit after the panel rules and consider whether we should go to arbitration. Let me tell you a little bit about arbitrators. There used to be 1,600 arbitrators in the state of Texas. Then they raised the standard. You had to be at least a real estate broker or a lawyer or an accountant or something other than just having a pulse and a heartbeat. And suddenly 1,600 arbitrators was cut down to 200. There's only 200 arbitrators in the state of Texas. And I was blessed by Michael Amosquita to take the 3-day course because he thought that I should get paid because I was providing so much information and I had the expertise. I took the course, but I said, Mike, I'd rather not pick winners and losers. I'd rather pick winners. And the winners are the taxpayers that I help, save money. But the people I met that are arbitrators, they don't have a dog in the hunt. They're not necessarily our neighbor if we choose an arbitrator that's outside the county, and we're able to distinguish whether we want one from the county or not from the county. We don't choose the arbitrator. But those arbitrators, they're a little more educated than the panel of our peers. To be on the appraisal review board panel, you do not have to exhibit any academic background in real estate or valuation.
Okay. Someone is asking, well, I purchased a home in 2020. So is it possible still to reduce the assessment to less than the 2020 purchase price?
Absolutely. And let me give an extreme example. You could, if you purchased it in July and you discovered after you purchased it that there was many things that you didn't realize that needed to be done, or maybe there were things that you knew going in you wanted to do it. But if on January 1st, you're in the middle of a remodel, or worse, if January 1st, you wake up to find out that when you were skiing, that the house burned down the night before, then what's the value on January 1st? So you could buy the property in July. That doesn't mean that it didn't go down in value. Whether it's because you made you started to make demolition, or whether it's because you noticed things that you didn't consider when you were buying the home. So buying the house, depending on when you bought it and depending on what has transpired between that date and January 1st, but the effective date, that was the first thing we discussed, is January 1st. That's the date that controls the value.
Okay, let's see. To open it. Dwayne is asking, can you go back to the screen that had the talking points behind his key three messages available in PDF?
Hold on, I think I know what he's referring to. Yeah, and this is true. I always like to tell people, if you walk away with nothing else.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
If you can
manage your message.
I don't know if you can see me, but this is how I do it visual. Look at me on the screen. Inform with facts. That's coming from the brain. Entertain with images, pointing to my eye, and inspire from the heart. You do those three things, and no matter what it is, your message, whether you're preaching or whether you're selling or whether you're just relating to your loved one, if you do all three, I promise you, your acceptance rate of your message, even if somebody disagrees with you, is more likely to be received with a higher level of comprehension.
Okay. Anne is asking, is there a scenario where it is a good option to accept the informal offering, or is it going to the next level always the best opinion or option?
I'd have to just qualify my answer at 99.9% of the time. You don't have anything to lose by going to the panel. The appraiser, if you make friendly with that appraiser, he or her, I always act like, well, thank you, that I appreciate that, and now I have some time. And what else? I always lead the appraiser with questions like, well, what else could I bring to help my case? And next thing you know, they're almost advising you. They're saying, well, if you would just get more estimates, or if you just get some more pictures, and whatever they tell you, you do. Now you show up in front of the panel, you're doing what they said. So you've met with them, and now you're going in front of the panel, having done what they asked you to do. I'd even say it. I want to thank Mr. Appraiser, and I'm here because I got some more information. And as you can see in my package, he's looking at it for the first time, and then he may stick with his number that he made the offer at, or he may be sympathetic to the fact that he's on stage, if you will. Now he's in front of a panel. This is a formal hearing. It is being recorded. The informal is very friendly, but that's why I go back to my do's and don'ts. I don't impeach the character or the personality of the appraiser, because they can either be your best friend or just an antagonist. If they're antagonistic, then we look to the jury sympathetically to say, do you see what's going on here? He's tired, he's having a bad hair day, and he doesn't even have any hair.
Yeah, okay. Let's see, Michael Byrne has a question. He says, like, for example, and this would be my question too, if you use window repair as a reason to adjust the assessment, then can you use that same argument the following year? That is, if I document everything this year, then what can I use next year?
Every year stands on its own. I like to say this is like deer season, and we're the deer, right? And they're gonna say the same thing to you. So I've even had situations where I went to arbitration. My favorite case on Kyle Seal Parkway is, obviously this is just raw land, but it was a 1.5 acre, 2.5 acre, and 6.5 acre parcel. The panel didn't understand, obviously, what all of us know by going to Costco versus going to the convenience store. If you buy in higher volume, you get a lower value per unit. Well, they didn't give me a different value per acre, even though it was 1.5, 2.5, and 6.5 acres. But worse than that, the topography. In other words, I was showing them, trying to attempt to describe that it wasn't a plate. It was more like a bowl turned upside down, these properties. In other words, there was not much surface area, even though the boundary was. So at arbitration, we were not successful one year. The following year, the appraiser calls me and she says, Mike, I'm back, and I'm not going to give you anything less than last year's arbitration value. I said, well, it's great to see you again, but would you please go out there so that you can give yourself a break from the COVID, social distancing, working from the office? And she took me up in the office. She went out there. She calls me back. She says, Mike, I nearly broke my neck. I should have taken some tennis shoes. But the bottom line is she lowered it. She went back 3 years, meaning she lowered it to a value that was 3 years old.
Okay.
She saw it. So my answer to you is that, yes, you can use the window repair this year. And if next year you haven't repaired them, then you still need to do that to catch up to the homes that have been upgraded.
Okay. Matt D is asking, can you discuss the 10% cap?
Yes, I will be polite in telling you that I testified on behalf of, at the invitation of Senator Betancourt for the passage of SB 2, which was in the last session, not the current session of the legislature, 2 years ago. And a lot of the legislators said, look, we've achieved some control over the growth of local government and school districts. They can only go up 2.5% to 3.5% in their budgets, and that's going to be passed on in terms of the increase in value. Unfortunately, last year, to everybody's dismay, because of COVID, there was an exception to implementing this controlling of budgets. So I like to say the mad dog gets one free bite. The government, if you jokingly, if you think it's mad, it's taking a bite, and it's saying, if we can justify a 10% value, we're going to take it to 10%. We may take it more than that, but for tax purposes, we currently are capped at, if you have 250, it can only go up by 25,000. Now, the problem with that is, if you don't know your finance, the rule of 72 is this: anything that increases by 10% every year will double in value in 7.2 years. So if today it's 200,000 and every year we allowed it to go up 10% and never negotiated a value down, then in 7.2 years, the value would be 400,000. And currently We're seeing the last year and this year, those values have been increased by 10%. For those of us that didn't argue, perhaps they only went up 5% last year. And if we can lower the value this year, then we're also setting the stage for whatever the limit or cap is going to be after we come out of this situation. It won't grow as fast.
Okay. Let's see. Elaine Reese would like to know, could you just go over flex your social style again? What is flexing your social style to the panel?
Well, to the panel, for instance, back in the day when I was a more shy personality studying accounting, this is 40 years ago, I would be considered in that blue category. And that means that, I needed to open up my personality a little bit if I was going to talk to somebody who had a more jovial personality or more aggressive personality that would a red or a yellow. If I was going to talk to the doctor about my surgery, I needed to get to the point real fast because that was their attention span. So what I'm saying by flexing your style is we fall into one of these styles predominantly, and these are formed at birth. And except for major life experiences, I've learned that we tend to not suddenly go from blue to red. Now we may flash a little personality. We may mute our personality when we go see the dentist or we go see the surgeon. Or the accountant. But our personalities tend to predominate in one of these quadrants. That means 75% of the people listening to our message have a different personality. So I'm betting the odds that if you're a thinker, you like to speak in facts. Don't forget the pictures. If you're somebody who likes to tell stories and show pics, don't forget to show the estimates and the repairs with data. And by doing that, you are flexed your style to the panel because you don't have a chance to know whether are they 3 feelers or 3 thinkers or 2 feelers and 1 thinker. By having pictures and data, there's a greater chance that both social styles will hear your message, and somebody might be sympathetic to your pictures, somebody else might be sympathetic to your data.
Okay. What is from Grace? She'd like to know, what is the approximate time frame from the receipt of the county's evidence package to the hearing date?
Oh, that varies based on the volume. As I said, last year, out of over 600,000 property owners, 20% protested. I pray with all the hearings. We've got Constable Vodovich and I are teaming up on April 15th, and we've already got 195 people have signed up for that. So we are pushing this message out to as many places that will allow us to protest, or teach people how to protest. That's why when the county gets all those protests in, then everybody's falling in a queue. So last year, I can tell you that if you got the evidence package at the same time, you were probably told your hearings in 2 weeks. But last year with COVID, because of social distancing, they extended the filing deadline to June 29th. And I was hearing informal hearings as late as August. But I anticipate we're going to be back on schedule. I believe the panels are going to start hearings June 7th. That's in your notice that it says that the ARB panels will start June 7th. So hopefully if you get your protest in now, you might get your evidence package in a couple of weeks and you'll have plenty of time, but you won't get your evidence package and then be expected to be at the hearing the next day. I might tell you there are experiences that if, as a taxpayer, not me as a professional, but as a taxpayer, and even for those people who do hire me, I tell them, you make the schedule, file the protest, get the date. If it doesn't work for you because you're going to be out of town or it's not going to give you enough time to prepare, call them. They will reschedule it gladly. They're not trying to force you to their schedule. And in my experience the last 5 years is, Patty, if you were to call them and say, look, June 15th is not working because I've got a family reunion that week, they'll say, ma'am, how about June 29th? How about July 5th? And they will do it real quickly for the taxpayer. Now, if I call, they don't cut me as much slack. They figure I'm making a living doing it, and they're going to force me to their schedule.
Okay. Brian would like to know, should we suggest a value at any time during the protest?
I don't. Now they're going to ask you. They're going to ask you. I don't. I certainly strongly object to you putting that value before you even know where they got the number. Why would you want to suggest something that works against you? But once you do want to have a number, a goal, and I hope it's a goal that if you got it, you would be just thrilled. That it gives a little bit of room for compromise versus feeling like you're doing their job by negotiating against yourself and meeting them halfway. So the appraiser will ask you, and would maybe at that point you might consider sharing a value. But if you go to the formal panel, I tend to make sure that I'm low enough that if they are the kind of people that want to split the difference, that it gives them some room to not insult the appraiser. So if the appraiser's at 300 and you tell them 270, you're going to be happy if you get to 285. Don't tell them 285, because human nature in trying to resolve a conflict is always to split the difference. That's just my sense of negotiation.
Okay. All right. I don't have any others up on the deck here of the chat box. Anyone that's unmute, did you have a second question at hand? I did post real quick my email address, president@ghhna.org. If you'll email me so I can email you a recording of tonight's meeting.
Patty, I just want to say thanks to you for putting this on, and Michael, thanks to you for your time tonight. It was all very, very interesting.
Good. I'm glad it was helpful.
Wayne, spread the word.
How do I
Michael,
get
did you
in?
say you were having another
Yes,
presentation?
tomorrow night, I believe, let me check my schedule. I'm at St. Mark's over on Thousand Oaks.
Oh, yeah.
Patrick Von Dolan has stepped up to find that location.
Okay.
The Knights of Columbus Center, so not at the church itself, but at the church location. And then there's another church off of Wilderness Oak. I believe it's on the 17th. The Constable Vodovich has something on the April the 15th. I'm going to a couple of different chambers outside the county. But as I put together a schedule, Patty, I'll get it to you, and you're welcome to post it on y'all's.
Okay, good. Yeah, St. Mark's is right down the street. What time is the one at St. Mark's?
Oh, Patty, you're gonna get me to guessing. I'm gonna suggest it's a
Okay.
7, but we can get back to, or get back to you for sure.
Great. Okay, that sounds fine. If there's no more, you're all very welcome. I was happy to present it tonight. And I'll try to get those dates out. And those of you who want a recording of the version, there was a little bit of a glitch, and it was on my end. I had changed something slightly on the link and didn't realize I changed the entire link. So my apologies if you had difficulty getting in. But it looks like we have more opportunities out there in person to go and hear the presentation and ask. I think, Michael, you did a great job, and Michael's open to those personal questions that you might have particular to your property, so don't hesitate to reach out to him. Okay, I think we're about done. I don't see any more questions on the board. Michael, any closing thoughts for us?
Just bless all of y'all for engaging in this process. I think it's the neighborly thing to do, and I think the greatest commandment: love your neighbor like you love yourself. Hopefully, you're feeling the love from me. Spread the word. Let's learn from each other. And I think Patty's an incredible leader to thank you. And I don't say that, I'm not quick to compliment, but bless you for helping your neighborhood and being an example to other neighborhoods, because this is the only way we're going to do it.
You're welcome. Well, it was lovely to see all of you tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and do stay in touch with me. It's easy, president@ghhna.org. All right.